Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining the George Washington Carver Center for the Advancement of Science Education seminar. Today's topic is the perfect dose. A career in medicine sounds great. We are honored, and I am personally excited to have Ms. future Dr. Julia Jimenez, join us to deliver today's seminar. Julia is an example of what the next generation of youth leaders has to offer the STEM profession. She served as a program assistant for a STEM Teachers Scholarship Program whose mission is to promote equality of opportunity for all in STEM education. She earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in biology and a minor in chemistry in 2023 from Elmhurst University. Before she graduated, she was offered a position as a rotational scientist level 2 at a biotech company in San Francisco, California. She was accepted into GeneTech's Development Sciences Rotational Program, where she works to discover and develop medicines to treat serious and life-threatening diseases. Being a scientist allows Julia to be a part of the behind the scenes magic of patient care. And she is driven to use her knowledge to help others, like those of you who are here with us today and those of you who will be watching this. Today, we will be using the chat to ask questions and answer questions. And at the end of the seminar, I will kindly ask you to complete a very brief survey that will take you probably 2 minutes to give us feedback on what we've done good and what we can do better. At this time, I present to you Ms. Julia Jimenez.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Good afternoon for everyone that's in Illinois. Good morning to everyone that's in California, like myself. Today, I'm beyond excited to share what it's like to have a career in medicine, my journey, but also a little bit of background of how we deliver the perfect dose. As Dr. Robinson mentioned, my name is Julia Jimenez. And with that, let's get into the presentation. So I made a little Who Am I poem. It goes a little like this. My name is Julia Jimenez. I was born in the Philippines. I grew up in Bridgeview, Illinois. I went to school at Elmhurst University, where I got my bachelor's in science and biology. And now I live in San Francisco and have been here for almost a little bit over a year. And I moved here to be a scientist where I research cancer medicine. And outside of work, I love to travel and I also love bird watching. So I had the opportunity to go to Iceland where I saw puffins with my own real eyes. So if you can imagine a flying penguin, that's exactly what a puffin is. And a few months ago, I went to the California Science Academy where there was a corpse flower. So I had the pleasure of seeing it bloom, which is actually quite rare. And I had the not so pleasurable experience of smelling it. So, to remind you, it's called a corpse flower because of the way it smells. And lastly, I am very social. I love hanging out with my friends. Here in California, bonfires at the beach is very common. So, that's what I do once in a while. I gather up some friends, set up a bonfire, and roast some marshmallows. And it's actually a very pleasant time. So into our presentation today, we're going to have three key questions. Specifically, I want you to think about these questions as we go through, um, such as why do we use medicine? What factors are considered for delivering the perfect dose? What careers are involved in medicine? So today, I'm going to try to help you understand these questions, and hopefully at the end of the presentation, we can go through it and have a discussion. And a few vocabulary, if you don't know, or maybe I can acquaint you to these words such as bacteria, virus, and the difference between a dose and dosage. On this slide, you can kind of see some interesting pictures. There's something that looks like an alien. I wonder what that is. So if you ever feel sick, you might have these symptoms, such as a fever, like when you feel, or maybe you're sneezing, coughing, or maybe your stomach hurts and you have a headache, or a runny nose, and or body aches or a sore throat. So these are all symptoms that you might have when you're sick. So that brings me to my question. When you feel sick, what happens to make you feel better? I'm going to give you 1 minute to think about it and quickly put it into the chat. I'm going to wait patiently, so make sure we get some comments in, and I will wait.
We have someone says sleeping when they feel sick. Tea, medicine. So those are some of the responses we got. Thank you for adding those. When you feel sick, what happens to make you feel better? Tea, medicine, sleeping. Maybe one or two more. Okay, great.
Great. It's so great to hear everyone's responses. So I heard sleep, just very correct. Rest is super important. And then tea. Tea helps you regulate, kind of get more hydration into your body. That's correct. Someone mentioned medicine. Very interesting take. I'm just kidding, but that's correct. We also do take medicine to feel better. And with that, why do we use medicine? So we take medicine for our bodies to feel better when we're sick or hurt. And actually, some medicines help fight germs like bacteria or viruses, while some help with pain. And for example, when you have a headache, you might take aspirin, or a sore throat, you'll take other kinds of medicine to help the pain go away and for your health to get better. Now, I mentioned a few terms like germs, bacteria, and virus. So let's go through those definitions and see what's the difference between the two. So bacteria is living. It is here on the top right corner. It can reproduce on its own. It is treated with antibiotics. And something fun about them is that not all bacteria are harmful. So you actually have good in your gut, and that helps you digest and absorb the nutrients. And sometimes, well, there is bacteria in your food, and it can be good bacteria, such as yogurt. So yogurt has special bacteria. So when we eat it, it goes into your stomach and helps with the bacteria to help with further digestion and absorption. So it's also important to take in the good bacteria to help battle the bad bacteria. And when we talk about virus, it's good to know that they cannot live on their own and they need a host to reproduce. So earlier we saw this crazy looking alien thing, and this is the head where the DNA is located. And you can see it has this shape on the bottom, kind of like its feet. So what it does, it comes to the host and it attaches on, and it will actually inject the DNA into the host, therefore reproducing in that way. And both bacteria and virus are very, very small, so you can't see them without a microscope. But virus is much smaller than bacteria. And viruses are treated with antiviral drugs. You cannot treat your viral infection with antibiotics. That is very important to know. So again, let's open up the chat for more ideas. What are the different types of medicine? How can you take medicine? Hopefully the pictures on the screen can help you think of answers, but I'm going to give you again 1 minute to think of an idea and type it into the chat.
And
We have one of our participants said an inhaler, and someone else said Tylenol. Motrin.
All right.
Yes, thank you for participating. Yes.
Yes, we have a
Injections,
lot.
they're coming in. Injections. Honey. Someone said with honey. Injections. A shot. Oh,
Perfect. So good job using the pictures that we have on the screen. Like a few of what we mentioned, let's see, let me pull up we said Tylenol. So Tylenol is a pill form that you can take. Let's see, a shot that is in the slide, as well as injections. Honey, that's like a liquid form of natural medicine. So onto my next slide. Here you can see all the different kinds. So like Tylenol, that is a pill or a tablet. And we have liquid medicine, such as cough syrup. And sometimes if you have an itch or a scratch, you might put ointment on it for it to go away and to heal a lot better. Inhalers help you breathe if you need that form of medicine. And we have shots and injections. So the other day I got my flu shot and they stuck the needle into my left arm and they put the medicine in and stuck the needle right out. And it took 2 seconds and it did not hurt at all. But I noticed that after an hour, it did start to hurt. And it's because for the medicine to go in, they need to go further into the muscle. So now my arm starts feeling sore. And it's really important when you take any kind of injection that you keep that body moving to help your body from being sore the next day. There's also other ways that we help our bodies stay healthy. So medicines help you feel better, but it also helps you prevent getting sick in the future. So if you remember when COVID was happening, a few of us got the vaccine, and that's preventative. So it helps us not get as sick if and when we did get COVID. Now let's think, where does medicine come from? So medicine actually comes from plants, microorganisms, and animals. I have a few examples here. Aspirin is for headaches, and that came from willow trees. Whereas penicillin, which is an antibiotic, came from mold. And it's actually a pretty fun story. So a scientist took bacteria causing diseases, put it on this little dish, and put the penicillin with that dish. And he observed that the bacteria was no longer growing. Therefore, with his scientific reasoning, he had the bright idea that penicillin helps with biotic diseases. So therefore, it's an antibiotic. And he was correct. And now we use it, and it's great. And moving forward, we have insulin. So insulin is something that helps people regulate their sugar. So sugar is very important for your body to have enough energy throughout the day. So it's very important for it to be able to process and have the energy to sustain for the whole day. And that came from the pancreas of cows and pigs. We no longer get insulin from cows and pigs due to laboratory made drugs, where modern medicine is now made in laboratories using chemical processes. Scientists can now get drugs and modify them from natural substances like the pancreas of cows and pigs and completely make them in the lab, no longer needing the cow or pig, or they could even develop new molecules, which we can get into a different day. So let's think, what is a dose? A dose is a quantity of medicine that is recommended to take at a particular time. Think of it as the scale that I have. You don't want too much and you don't want too little. You want this perfect balance for it to treat you correctly. And our next question is, what is a dosage? Think of dosage as the overall schedule of taking the medicine. So how often you take it and how long you take that said medicine. So when we deliver the perfect dose, we think about how doctors and scientists work together to figure out the right amount your body needs to feel better without taking too much. There are three factors that we consider. It is the type of sickness that you have. Maybe it's a cold, maybe it's a fever, and then how can we treat that said sickness with the right medicine? So like we mentioned earlier, we had Tylenol. Maybe if you have a sore throat, a little bit of honey can help. And finally, the third option that we think about too is the age and the weight of the patient. So younger kids will have a different dose than your parents or your grandparents, and that's also very important to think about. So when we think about the careers in medicine delivery, I'm highlighting just three on this slide, but there's so much more careers that we can be a part of. So we have scientists. They work with researching and discovering different drugs to help the sickness. And then we also test and get approval. Testing can be done with animals or even cells. And then we move forward once it's approved with clinical trials, where we give it to patients and see how they react and bring that information back to the lab and make the drug better to fit the right patient population. Then these are the people that you see maybe in Walgreens or CVS, and they'll be wearing the coats and they're preparing the medicine. And they also teach you how to take the medicine and answer any questions that you have. It is also very important to know that pharmacists aren't just the people working in Walgreens or CVS. They can also do the business side of medicine and the finance side. There's more than retail to a pharmacist. And doctors and nurses, these are the people we see at the hospital, and they help you when you come in and they try to figure out what's wrong. And once they find out, they'll prescribe you with the right medicine. And also sometimes they might give the medicine to the patients. Like when I got my shot, I did not give that to myself. A nurse helped me. And you can see all of these arrows are pointing to each other because they all work together in this system. It's not just a one-way funnel. It actually keeps circling together, and the scientists, the pharmacists, nurses, and doctors, and much more help with this pipeline of delivering the perfect dose. So a little bit about myself. This is about my career as a scientist. I have two main goals, and the first one is to find what medicines are needed for specific patients. So I work with breast cancer research, and I get to discover and develop new medicines to help patients feel better. And with that, like I said earlier, we go through trials. So personally, I work with cells, breast cancer cells. I give them a drug and I see how they react. That brings me to point number two, where I use technologies to answer my research. I work in the science laboratory and I get to use fun things like microscopes, pipettes, and I again study how the medicine affects these cells. I also have the ability to change their DNA. So I edit how which gene is expressed and which gene is important for the reaction with this drug. In these pictures, here I am in my lab wearing my special white lab coat, And there's a picture of this magnificent group. So these are all scientists that are part of my program, and we are coming from underrepresented communities. And I thought that it was really important to highlight that you can be a part of this pipeline of delivering the perfect dose. And there are so many people that are here paving the way for you all to one day, hopefully, be a part of the magic. And with that, here I am highlighting my career journey. So like most of us here, I went to preschool, elementary school, then high school. I graduated in 2019. 2021, I got my associates in science and biological sciences. This was during COVID. I do not have a graduation picture, but I did work through my associates at Andy's Frozen Custard. This is like, I was just thinking about it, but this is pretty good. Probably the best custard I've had, and I do miss it dearly because we don't have this in California. And then in 2023, I earned my Bachelor in Science in Biological Sciences at Elmhurst University. Before I move on, I will add that when I got my associates in science, this was at a community college. So it is okay and totally worth it to go to community college first, figure out what kind of degree you want. And for me, it was biological sciences. And as you can see throughout the rest of my education, I am continuing my biology background. So 2023, Elmhurst University, bachelor's in science with my biological sciences degree. And now I'm working at Genentech, which is a biotech company where I get to work with the cancer therapeutics as a scientist level 2. And I'll be here until 2025. I'm currently in a 2-year program, which lets me rotate through different parts of the research and development side of drug discovery. And right now I am applying for PhDs in biology. So hopefully one day I can be Dr. Julia Jimenez. So this is my journey right now. It hasn't always been linear like this. There has been a lot of ups and downs, but I think it's well worth it when figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your career. And I hope that inspires you and lets you know that you can have a career in medicine too. So that can be a doctor, a scientist, a nurse, a pharmacist, and so much more. And on this slide, I'm also highlighting that there are different types of doctors, that it's not just the medical doctor that you see when you walk into the hospital. That is an MD, which stands for Doctor of Medicine. You can also get your PhD, which is the Doctor of Philosophy. Dr. Robinson has her PhD. And you could be DPT, which is Doctor of Physical Therapy. PharmD, like we mentioned, is for the pharmacists. And PsyD is the Doctor of Psychology. If you like to study how people think and their behaviors, this might be a good path for you. And with that, let's open up the chat and go through these questions again. What did we learn today? Let's start with number 1. Let's think about, why do we use medicine? And I'll give you 1 minute to think about your answer and put your answers into the chat.
Ini Julia.
Miss Julia, we have Elizabeth wrote, why do we use medicine? Because it makes us healthy and happy.
I like that, Elizabeth. I really like that because it's true. Medicine really does help us feel happy and healthy. And like we said today, medicine can help you feel better when you're sick, but it can also prevent you from getting sicker in the future. And let's move on to question number 2. Let's name 3 factors that we consider, doctors and scientists consider, for delivering the perfect dose. If you remember, there were 3 things that I highlighted. I'm going to give you 1 minute to put your answers in the chat.
Oh, we have 2 factors. Someone has given us 2 factors to consider that are considered when delivering the perfect dose. Yes. Age was one of them. That's correct. And there's a third. Yes,
And
good
this is
job.
1 more. Yeah,
Good
this is
job.
good. This is good.
Type of sickness. Yes. Type of sickness, age, and weight. Very good.
Type of sickness, age, and weight. And what else? Type of, how do we treat it? With the right kind of blank. Looks like we have the right kind of dosage. Elizabeth also said type of medicine. That's correct. So for the 3, I listed that scientists and doctors work together to think of the right type of, to think about the type of sickness, the type of medicine, and then as a final contributing factor is the age and weight of the patient. So our last question, what careers are involved in medicine? Again, I'm going to give you 1 minute to put in to the chat. Remember, there's way more than what I've listed, so maybe you can think of something on your own too.
Wow, they are really answering that. Scientists and nurses, physicians. Andy said physicians. Bernadette said an eye doctor. Yes. Psychiatrist. Oh my gosh, the ideas are really blowing up in the chat, Miss Julia. A dentist. Absolutely. Very good, Vicky. Very good.
Wow, it is really exciting to see everyone's responses. And that's correct. There's so many ways that you can be involved in medicine. Like, I'm a scientist. My mom is actually a nurse, and my brother has his doctorates in physical therapy. So it's wonderful to see that we've got dentists in the mix, even veterinarian. That's a good one too. An eye doctor, that's important. I need glasses to see well. See, psychiatrist is very important as well. Wow. Thank you everyone for your wonderful responses. This is very exciting. And with that, I want to thank you all for joining for today's seminar. I want to leave you with the saying of be the change you want to see in the world. So for me personally, thank you for being a part of my journey. Maybe you were here for only 30 minutes of my whole journey, but it is substantial in the way that this is the timeline of my growth. So thank you again for participating. If you do want to continue this conversation, I have my personal email and also my LinkedIn where you can message me, connect, and we could also do future collaborations as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it to Dr. Robinson.
Let's give Miss Julia our electronic uh, hand claps if you can. Let's give her a round of applause for a wonderful, wonderful um, presentation today. I'm gonna give it a round of applause. They are saying thank you and giving you applause. Thank you all for joining us here on your Saturday to think about a career in medicine. It is for you, no matter your age, no matter where you live, where you're from, if you're a girl or a boy, you're Black or Hispanic or Latinx, it doesn't matter. If you are interested, it can be for you. At this time, we would love to have your feedback. There is a very short evaluation. It will take you about 2 minutes to complete. The link is in the chat. It's a Google form, and it's just going to ask you to rate how well we did and what other topics might you want us to discuss. We will have our next seminar on November 23rd, and it will be with a computer scientist. And that one will be about the basics of coding and a career in computer science. Sounds great. So, yes, so if you would please take the time to fill out the evaluation feedback. It also will help us stay in touch with you so that we can directly communicate with you to make sure you get all of our notices and information about our seminars for young people. So before we go, if there are any questions, please put them in the chat. We got someone saying, "Thank you so much, Julia. This was amazing." And it was. And it was. I
Thank
cannot
you.
take credit for being Julia's teacher. My name is Dr. Teresa Robinson. I'm the executive director and founder of the Carver Science Center, and I am a former high school biology teacher. I have my bachelor's degree is in biology also. But Julia served as a program assistant for me, and she was just wonderful to work with. So, Julia, we have a question. What's the most fun thing about being a scientist?
Fun thing. Um, Honestly, I hate to say it, but I love the challenge. I love coming in and not really knowing how the day is going to look. And there's a lot of times in science that you have to pivot and change what your thought the process is. So being able to grow and learn through my mistakes is something I have to get comfortable with. So that is one of the fun parts of being a scientist.
Great. We have another question. Is there an age limit to start your career as a nurse?
As a nurse,
Yeah.
no, there is no age limit. And I know you do have to go back to school, take the right courses, get some experience as well, but there's no age limit to when you can become a nurse.
I really like the question about how early can I start my career? That's what that sounds like to me. And wanting to know what's the fun part about being a scientist. And sometimes a challenge can be fun, right? Not always having things work out, or some people enjoy a challenge. And if you're the type that enjoys a challenge, maybe a career in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics could be for you.
I will also add if you enjoy helping others, if you find yourself liking to take care of others, maybe a career in science is something for you. It doesn't have to be necessarily bedside like a nurse or a doctor, like a medical doctor, but you could do something like I did, where I decided to be the behind the scenes of the magic. And that's why I enjoy what I do.
We have another question for you, Miss Julia. Besides the scientist, what other career pathways really fascinate you?
That's a great question. So I'm pretty sure from middle school to maybe halfway through high school, I thought that I would be a pharmacist. And then I took a few of my chemistry classes and thought that, it's not really clicking. as much as my biology classes. So this is by the time I was in my third year of high school, I started to seriously consider getting a biology degree. And it was a great time because that's when you start applying for college and out a little bit further in your future. But I've always been really excited about the general sciences, so like nature and space, and also sometimes medicine was also very, very interesting to me. So yeah, there's so many paths that I can go.
We have another question for you, Miss Julia. You're very popular. What's the hardest thing about being a scientist?
Hmm. I think the hardest part is, let me think a little bit. The hardest part is working with such a broad group of scientists. So it's good and bad in the way that you get so many different ideas, but also you have to be able to communicate the right way between all the different people. And for me, that can be challenging, um, but it is well worth it because we get the job done with proper teamwork and collaboration.
Hmm. We have another question about, do you know any schools that I could start my career as a nurse as a high school student? And I can add that if you are a high school student, you can absolutely start taking, there's, before you become a nurse, which is a registered nurse, an RN, there are other levels of nursing, like a licensed practical nurse. That's called an LPN. And before that is a CNA, that's a certified nurse's assistant. So if you wanted to start at one of the lower levels, you could start at one of your local community colleges in their CNA program to be a certified nurse's assistant. If you wanted to skip that and go straight to the LPN, the licensed practical nurse program, you could also do that at a local community college. We are in the Chicagoland area, so there are the city colleges of Chicago. There are community colleges in our surrounding suburbs. There's Triton College, there's Harper College, there's Malcolm X, which is part of the City Colleges of Chicago, has a partnership with Rush hospitals and universities. And so students who start their nursing programs will have practical experience as soon as they start their programs with working with patient care. So you can start in high school by starting one of those programs at one of those levels, either a CNA and LPN. Registered nurse is a 4-year bachelor's program. So that is something that is going to require that you have chemistry courses, um, biology courses, and a little bit of mathematics. You'll also have that. But if you wanted to start in high school, you could start with a CNA or an LPN. So that's my advice. Miss Julia, do you have any other advice?
My advice is that you could also volunteer either at a nursing home or a hospital. That's what I did because my mom is a nurse. It was pretty easy for me to understand that, oh, if I want to have any kind of contribution to patients and to understand what it's like to be in the medical field, I decided to start volunteering at my mom's hospital. And I did that maybe for 2 years, and it was a good experience.
All right. Thank you for your time, Miss Julia. We know that you are in another time zone in California on the West Coast, so we thank you for waking up early to come talk to our middle school students and their families included about the perfect dose. A career in medicine would be great. Thank you all for attending. I look forward to reading your responses in the feedback survey to hear what topics you'd like to have and communicating with you about our upcoming. Just remember, November 23rd, which is a Saturday at the same time, we will be talking about the basics of coding. All right, goodbye, everyone.